So we've answered the questions now, haven't we?
We know there is someone out there who's trying to warp Herald's feelings.
Time skips again, as the series sets up the characters once more as they finally get back to musing on Herald and the Key. And of course, what it actually is.
Perhaps a contract with an evil spirit that grants you power beyond your wildest dreams. Or maybe it'll open Pandora's box and change the world as we know it.
Yeah, been down that road already. Not a fun time. BT is saying this all to Silver Knight, by the way. As part of his fall from grace, he's now tempted by the Key himself, by BT suggesting the idea that it might allow him to control the game to obtain the order he wants. Which is, of course, her con to get another partner she can exploit. One with manpower behind him. Well, Bear calls everyone else together so they can collectively find the way to resolve it. Though amidst this, Subaru and Tsukasa start dating in all but name as they spend lots of time together, and it's been a positive effect on both of their well-being, to the point that Subaru gains the honor of being the first person Tsukasa shows the creator's room to. However, Aura is gone, Morgana revealing that whatever purpose Tsukasa was brought in for has been completed.
I don't need you anymore.
And she disposes of him by data draining him. Okay, explaining data drain. Well, have you ever had a hard drive crash or a memory card for a game console be wiped when you really need that data to keep doing stuff? So now if you want to get anything done, you've got to start back at the beginning? Yeah, turn that experience into a special attack, and that's basically it. Data drain, when used on a victim, either inflicts massive status ailments and damage, or if the victim is protect broken, removes all of the character data built up, resetting them to level 1. Made worse for Tsukasa, as his consciousness is trapped in his PC, he feels every bit of data pulled from him, which, like reconstituting himself from save data, is an excruciating experience. On top of that, the data drain pulls from him everything that makes Tsukasa Tsukasa, leaving him catatonic in the game as well, struggling to learn how to do everything again, from simply moving to comprehending objects in the world around him. Can you even imagine losing yourself so utterly? To have your very identity painfully stripped from you? To be left as nothing but an empty shell and have nothing and no one around you to care for you and help you recover? Amnesia doesn't even begin to cover the level of mutilation to oneself that is. And yet, the next several episodes have Tsukasa recover from the data drain. How is certainly a big question, considering those who get drained are usually left in a death state or end up player killed, and in the player graveyard unless there was some other circumstance that mitigated the effects. But regardless, while he's taken the time to piece himself back together, his role in things is rendered moot. Hell, all he does for several episodes is destroy Aura's teddy bear. But Maha watches over him while the others deal with other issues while being concerned with his sudden absence, especially Subaru, who begins a frantic search for him. One of said issues being the sudden appearance of monsters that can't be defeated with any attack sent at it, as if their data has been bugged, thus don't understand how hit points are supposed to work anymore. A prelude to the primary interim bosses that would be featured in the following video game quadrilogy. Bear thinks that they might be connected to the bigger mess Tsukasa has gotten involved in, as all of this does seem to date back to that cat PC, believing they may be able to get more information about everything from the AI that they encountered in the inverted castle. One is managed to ID in the real world as Herald due to its having the splitting image of the world's creator from research he did, prompting him to seek out Helba once more to get them back to him with her hacker abilities. She sets them up with a hacked chaos gate at the bottom of a dungeon, which after descending through with a little help from Balmug of the Azure Sky, someone more relevant to the IMOC games than here with this cameo, leading them straight to him. And for once, Mimaru nets a proper response from the AI fragment, giving them a semi-understandable conversation, Herald admitting he's made a mistake leaving Aura to the sole care of Morgana, as she has gone rogue, intending to suspend Aura's development and awakening indefinitely by corrupting her with negativity, fear, and despair, so she won't want to awaken to take her place in the world, and by doing so, maintaining Morgana's existence.
His purpose
Was a tool to warp Aura and give birth to her.
As from processing all the data of humans in the game for the creation of a true sentient AI, some of it leaked over to her core program and, well, after CC Corp started disposing of defective AI she'd made in the process of creating Aura, she conceptualized the meaning of death and came to understand that, for Aura to be born as the ultimate AI, she would end up ceasing to function and be supplanted in her role by Aura herself, effectively killing her. Thus, the entire events of Dot Hack Sign and the IMAC quadrilogy are all a result of her attempting to preserve her own existence at any cost, even if it solely drives her insane as she fragments and destroys herself piece by piece. In all irony, it is a very human reaction that when faced with extinction, any alternative is seen as preferable. And as she's one of the central programs the world functions upon, her becoming a rampant degenerating AI going against her core programming has begun to negatively affect the system, spawning the data bugs and the other system glitches that have cropped up that were due to CC Corp deleting programs willy-nilly.
I will not let you get in the way of my will.
However, the meeting is cut short as Helba's gate alerted Morgana to this Herald clone's continued existence, and she gets around to deleting it. But they got what they needed to know. Tsukasa is the key to awakening the true Aura, and when that happens, he will be able to log out. The group in response to these revelations decides they need to talk to Helba in person as this is bigger than all of them, gathering at her instruction for transport to her domain, with Tsukasa being the only straggler after they try to contact him, as he has only recovered to the point where he's a scared child, the abused girl she was before she became jaded to everyone and everything around her. To help him at Subaru's urgings, Krim tells him how Subaru has struggled all of this time the same way he has, how she only has the freedom to move as she pleases in the world.
Some will say that she's in denial, that it's just for self-satisfaction, self-deception, self-pity. But Subaru is not like that. It's because she can take responsibility. Subaru won't run away. She'll face her challenges now.
And she has chosen to give that time to him. With that prompting a flashback to Anne's shoplifting because she didn't have the money to buy basic clothing and toiletries, and subsequently slapped by her father for it. Have I emphasized how much I hate this guy yet? But Krim's words are what prompt him to come back to himself, to not cower away and make excuses, but stand up and own your actions, as that's the only way you may build your own future, the future of happiness one desires. The group gathers in wait for Helba's gate to form, amongst them surprisingly being Silver Knight, who got a talking to from Krim earlier, and of course, a speech telling him it's just a game and to not take it so damn seriously, which seems to have fixed whatever his issue is, despite him being told this repeatedly throughout the damn series.
Don't forget that the world's a game, and since it's a game, you should just enjoy it.
Okay, while it's true many of these people need to lighten up and realize a game, or any media really, does not make up their life, they do make an impact on our lives. Everything we do etches some feeling, good or bad, upon us. It's not exactly a good item that once it's over, it leaves a person indifferent to it, though I will agree it is far worse when at the end of something, you are left with nothing but hate, contempt, and rage. Wanting to protect that feeling, that is not a bad thing. But the problem, as I keep explaining it, was Silver Knight was acting like a fascist. It is not acknowledged that his actions were wrong. Anyways, as the gate forms and time draws short, the group start warping to their destination, quoting a rather popular author as they do so.
If you desire to know the truth, then you must know that you also need the courage to accept it as well. It's from Anwin. It's a phrase from one of my favorite novels.
I know it. Nashun hears those words from Wid, but then he doesn't reply. He simply turns and takes a huge step forward.
An author that, unknown to them, is in their party, and influence the elder player's own developments and playing of this game. Bear, Dadak-san's father, mentor, and influential figure, even if his companions are completely unaware he is driving this car. And as the gate prepares to close, Tsukasa arrives at the last moment to the joy of Subaru, and with his own epiphany. She doesn't want to be alone. The 7 gate to Net Slum, a special area literally constructed by vagrant AI and junk data, where junk data usually ends up after falling through the cracks of the system, and it is full of discarded Tsukasa clones. Yeah, Morgana apparently started creating them from the character data she was receiving from Tsukasa months ago, in an early attempt to stall Aura's awakening by putting her in a feedback loop of self-loathing. She failed, which led to her trapping the real Tsukasa in the first place, and linking the data collectors working on Aura's developments to Tsukasa alone. I gotta say, it's quite an achievement for someone to be so emo that you're chosen to feed those emotions to halt a being's development. Helba reasons that Aura's awakening and Tsukasa's ability to log out are linked, so once one happens, the other will be granted, with Subaru being the one to encourage him to want to go back, by the promise of how she'll be there when they get out.
Because I was touched by your soul, even though you were scared and unsure.
In the meantime, Sora, after encountering Maha earlier, ends up being warped into Morgana's presence, and as he has with everyone, he annoys Morgana, to the point she offers abilities similar to Tsukasa's for his service in stopping Tsukasa from gaining the will to leave. And also for him to shut up, which Sora actually refuses. He has seen those powers. If he was going to get some, he'd want his own. She instead dispatches Maha to recover Tsukasa and destroy Net Slum, as it's one of the few areas not under her domain, and moreover to attack and kill Subaru, as she's the one that has most dragged Tsukasa out of his ennui, and if she dies, it's likely he'll never recover. However, as the Guardian attacks the group, Tsukasa musters his own resolve to fight back and protect those he cares for, summoning his own Guardian as well. And in an odd scene, the two stab each other and merge, destroying each other in the process. And as the battle ends, after everything that's happened, and the friends he's finally realized he's gained, Tsukasa declares he wants to log out, resulting in Aura's data beginning to repair itself. A turn of events Morgana is not happy with. The party leaves Net Slum, deciding instead to seek asylum in the Hulgran's Cathedral for their last stand, as now Morgana's after all of them in an effort to drive Tsukasa into irreparable despair. Sora's also back in the normal area, and PK's BT, staggering her arrival, and finding their location, offering it to Morgana in an attempt to make a deal, which is rejected because she hates how uncertain and wishy-washy humanity can be. A lot of this episode is final character development, as we head into the endgame of the story, Krim declaring that if they can last long enough, they might just be able to pass on the battle to others even if they fail. Tsukasa, having regained all of her memories, is frightened of what will happen once she's out of the game, and this journey ending. Bear coming to her rescue, offering to act as her legal guardian in the place of her father, who I hope is rotting in jail in this series continuity, and to help her enter a private school, away from all the villains of her life, as her grades from what Bear's been able to uncover are more than good enough. Sora at this point comes by and engages Krim in battle, them bantering over how immature Sora is and that he refuses to commit to anything, while on the inside the others deal with the Guardian, and keeping it away from Subaru. But the tide of battle only shifts when BT cuts loose with defensive spells, while Tsukasa takes over healing. And together, this group are the first to defeat one of the Guardians. A rather impressive feat considering Tsukasa's level should be in the single digits, and none of them frequent the root towns that give access to areas higher than the mid-30s in this series, level 50 at most, and the Guardians start showing up in the games around the time a player is level 85 to 90. Hell, the highest level character there are Krim and Sora, and they're locked up fighting each other. Though it's a hollow victory, as Morgana then sends 3 more after them, which they have no chance against. However, this is where Maha steps in. See, since Morgana data drained Tsukasa, Maha has been nursing an item known as aromatic grass, a rather useless item with respect to the game. But this item was something Tsukasa gifted her, and much like the other AIs in this series, Maha has developed in her own right, showing emotions of her own, and deciding in the end to stand with Tsukasa as the Wavemaster's shown kindness has been more impactful to her than Morgana's long-standing cruelty. But the cost of doing this? Her own existence. This won't be the last we see of her. Morgana, enraged, tries another method to deal with the problem, and warps Tsukasa, Subaru, and Mimiru to her own personal domain, leading into the series finale. The three are split up and exposed to warped character data of the others, presenting each of them at their worst and most malicious in an attempt to break their bonds, all of which is controlled by Morgana, and it doesn't work, as each of them has already seen their friends at their weakest and worst, and they know that isn't the true self they've been shown. Unable to break their will as the zone collapses, and they face Morgana herself. While she tries one last time to crush their spirits to keep them from awakening Aura, Tsukasa states everything you need to know about this encounter.
I no longer have to listen to what you have to say.
And that's it. The last piece needed to break her spell.
You're the same. You use force. You use your power over me to force me to submit to you. To make her submit to you.
For Tsukasa to have her epiphany that there is value existing within this world.
Do not make me use it, Tsukasa. You of all people know how truly powerful I am.
I'm no longer afraid. I'm not afraid of you or my father.
Morgana is furious, but Sora, who has been there since his defeat by Krim, draws her ire. For the first time, instead of asking for her member address, Sora asks if after all this is over, whether he and Tsukasa might be friends, as Krim made him realize how empty being out only for himself was by his defeat.
Too bad for you, old lady, but I've betrayed you now, too.
But we will never see that happen, as after they leave, Morgana binds Sora as well.
I will now teach you that there is something far worse than death.
Imprisoning him eternally in the first phase of the Cursed Wave. Skaith, the terror of death. And in the real world, 10-year-old Ryo Masaki falls comatose, never to awaken the way he was ever again. Skaith follows them to Net Slum, which can't contain the power of the phase, forcing Helba to shut down the Net Slum server, or escaping to the creator's room, and every human character logged out. The series proper ends with An leaving the hospital in good health, color for the first time being added to the moments in the real world, and as she hits the streets, passing by a rather familiar wheelchair-bound girl, both realizing who the other is, An and Mariko turning and running towards the other's embrace. However, the signs of the greater problem have been left alone for too long. The infection has begun. But this isn't quite where the series ends. On top of a mid-series recap episode that basically has no role anymore in the era of media binging, there are also 2 OVAs for .hack Sign, the second of which is .hack Unison, set after the events of the games that I review separately from Sign, as it's the epilogue to both Sign and the IMOC games, so it is best discussed after all of them. But the former, however, is Intermezzo, focused on Mimiru in the aftermath of Tsukasa logging out, reminiscing back on her first journeys in the World R1, as an event dungeon she played in on her first days has returned to the game, traveling down into it to find the crystallized remnant of an abandoned player character, one whose use was locked out by taking damage in the previous event. The character is Mimika, controlled by 3 girls offline, who Mimiru named her character after in honor of her, as the long arm taught her how to truly play the game. And after everything that happened with Tsukasa and everyone, she felt she needed to pay her respects to the fallen form of that mentor, as without that encounter, she would never have remained a player in the game long enough to meet them, or the friends she has. And as much as Tsukasa's escape is the final proper finale to the series, this in turn provides a proper bookend to the ultimate moral and theme of the series. No one is an island. You never get anywhere by being alone, and the friends you encounter and make can always be there to support you in the toughest of situations. X Sign is a classic series, and a good start for this franchise and its first storyline, centrally focused on exploring the cast and the mysteries of this setting to lay a good groundwork for the game's own storyline, albeit with it giving the central antagonist of the first era more presence here than she has in the game centrally about fighting her. While the animators take liberties with the expressions and poses of the characters to keep things dynamic, as opposed to just standing there and talking, it's clear that what carries much of it is interactions. These characters are, without a doubt, among the most real fictional characters I've ever seen. I know that sounds like a contradiction, but think about it. Every fictional character falls into a certain number of stereotypical categories. The father figure, the tsundere, the shy girl, the rebel, the mentor, and so on. While I will not refute they fall into such categories, the characters seem natural, like you could run into them on the street. I already stated a clear comparison of Bear to the relationship I have with my own father, as he comes across as much the same man. Bear is that kind of guy that, much like the animal of the same name, acts defensively to those under his care. He doesn't quite get kids these days, but can relate with the assistance of Mimuru, and his experience in life shows well. Mimuru in the series is one of the lesser developed of the main characters, but this is consequential of how, well, she's already gone through his developments and acts as a symbol of what the others need to reach. Hell, she's one of the few main cast who we never learned her offline name of in the expanded universe, at least according to the information I use as additional research. She's brash, tending to tell it like it is, but knows when to back off. Her moments with A20 and in Intermezzo both show she doesn't like to leave things unfinished, whether it be a request, or trying to crack the nut that was Tsukasa after all the times they came across each other by chance. BT is complex, a woman out for her own goals, whether they relate to others or not. She's admittedly an item hunter, and of all things, a hatred of lettuce is a relevant factor to her character. Her reasoning is it's just there, it's neither good nor bad, and she dislikes that. Looking deeper into it, I think it's a hatred of being so plain that everyone just overlooks you, which may play into how her life has been led. Ignored by others for something shinier, as she may be considered ordinary, and the people she think might place value in her ending up all shrugging her off and leaving her to be. And there actually is truth in that. As an expanded lore material, apparently her backstory has her be a former model who quit to become a dispatcher because she's just not that good with people. It's probably why she was so devastated upon finding the inverted castle and getting to the supposed resting place at the Key of the Twilight, she was left with nothing to show for it. She just wants recognition and yet never seems to gain it. Though these days, it in part seems her fault. Subaru is a girl that values freedom due to the loss of her freedom of movement, attempting to create an environment in the game where others can enjoy that without fear of being harassed by those who would abuse it, and in the process loses that freedom itself from the symbol and false idol she became. Once she disbands the Knights, her infamy makes her an easy target, and thus forced to confront that for all this time she spent commanding the Knights, nothing had changed, causing her breakdown. In the end, her returning to being a regular player was one of the better decisions she could have made, as just exiling Silver Knight from the group would not have solved the underlying problems of them, and she would have been stuck in the same position until something gave. In a way, it can all be seen as her rebelling against the ordinary, the refusal to just be locked up in a cupboard like a broken doll, and I think that's what likely drew her so much to Tsukasa. For as much as they were alike, Tsukasa was the one that grasped at being truly free of others' restraints, while despite bearing the stronger sense of will between the two, Subaru was too kind for her own good and wasn't assertive enough until the need finally arose to put others down. Speaking of Silver Knight, what else can I say? He's an ass. While the last few episodes do work to redeem his character, by this point he's relaxed from the stick-in-the-mud enforcer with no actual power. It's clear he's one with an addictive personality, whether it be to duty, a cause, or whatnot. Considering his morals, it's understandable that he'd join and rise high in the Knights, but it's clear sermons were something he would tune out, as he never understood the meaning of not actually having the authority to carry out some of the things he's done. Still, loyalty builds its own bridges, and eventually he does come around that he was in the wrong. Krim was an odd cast member, but proved useful in moderating the Knights and giving an in to developing Subaru. It's stated repeatedly he comes into the game to relax and unwind, which explains why he quit the Knights early on. It stopped being fun to him. I'm not sure what his real-life job is, but it must be stressful and time-consuming, as in his first appearance he states he hasn't been able to log on in months. That he's so sure of himself that he agrees to meet one of the other cast members offline says a lot to how laid-back he can be even when he's dead serious. And despite wanting to take things easy, and reminds the others often not to take things too seriously, he's certainly dependable, and wanted to help Tsukasa return home however he could. Sora, I'm sad to say, doesn't have a lot of material to work on, as he ends up the most neglected character despite his role in being one of the cast members to incite events. He makes appearances in most of the episodes, but often enough is scheming in the back, toying with one of the other main PCs, or setting up something that will play in later. He's a quirky character that just wants companions, but due to how he acts, he often more than not forces them away, which only generates an escalating cycle as, well, no one actually has the patience to deal with him, and his backstabbing that breaks the trust he'd actually want. And you see in his ending moments that, had the cast treated him like Tsukasa did in the end, he might have still annoyed them, but his various betrayals wouldn't have happened where he lost faith in trying to make a connection, and only just came to use them as he thought they would only do as well. It's an interesting study on the Hedgehog's dilemma that is only further informed by later expansion of Ryo Masaki's character, which revealed he has workaholic absentee parents, so didn't learn in his youth how to interact well with people. Thus, his player-killing ways here are as much a means to just vent aggression pent up from not having an outlet to his frustrations, that sadly here we are given no insight into at all. At least outside of his name, which is a reference to Sora Kawai, a disciple of Matsuo Basho, who himself was a famous Japanese poet, who chronicled their own adventures in one of Japan's more important literary works, Oku no Hosomichi, also known as The Narrow Road to the Interior, giving a sign that he's a well-read boy, but also in how he plays reflects that of an adventurer in always seeking out what is hidden, be it a lost treasure or something special in those around him. To quote said text's most impressionable lines, every day is a journey, and the journey itself, home. And what is seen of Sora fits that. Though I also believe Sora to be the archetype called upon for the later formation of the chaotic PKs, as he became infamous for his kills to the point entire groups of players avoid him in fields even when they had the numbers on their side, all in hopes of not setting off a rampage when his conditions were triggered. Which, come GU and their chaotic PKs, will prove to be hilariously ironic. For Sora and the story of Ryo Misaki is not done by a long shot. Tsukasa, I have mixed feelings on. She is rude, she is damaged, she hates people, she needs someone to confide in, she's defiant, but she's ready to collapse inside. The events of the series started with her trying to escape her absolute crap life, even though running from your problems, especially into escapist media like MMORPGs, is normally never a way to get rid of them. On the other, it's clear from the flashbacks that any attempts to rectify them or make best of a bad situation fell through in the worst possible ways. Her mother is dead, her father is a stain on the human race, she's never had a friend in her life, and the one way out she was able to find was to immerse herself in an environment where she could take on a completely different identity. One as far removed from her life as she could. And then Morgana used that pain she was escaping from for her own purposes. Though in the end, I think becoming trapped in the game was the turning point in her life, allowing her to confront her issues and make friends which helped her free of not only Morgana's machinations, but also the abusive life she's had to live. In some ways, it resembles a princess story, albeit focusing more on the hardship than the happy moments. Morgana Mode Gone herself is actually a clever villain. She knows that if Aura awakens eventually she will be eliminated, and thus seeks to stop it by any means she can. She's a rampant AI in the stage of jealousy, slowly transitioning to the anger stage as the series prepares to change hands into the games. She knows what she needs to do, and goes about it in a manner that keeps her break from her programming a secret, first attempting to simply clone the darkness of Tsukasa's heart, before being forced to bring the girl into her world herself. Her comforting words to keep the Wavemaster isolated to them fail, however, as there are literally thousands of people still in the world she manages, on top of Tsukasa's desire to gain a friend in Aura once she awakens. Really, the flaw in her plan was, despite the damages to Tsukasa and her extensive data collection on humanity, she did not understand Tsukasa in the slightest. She thinks she does, but that's exactly the problem. She cannot comprehend the need to feel acknowledged by the people around you, and that leads to her plan failing, as once Tsukasa gets over her problems, Aura awakens. Really, she was only working on borrowed time which the rampant AI ended up wasting. The games make little mention of Morgana herself, though her presence and actions will be felt throughout the games in the form of her hunt to exterminate Aura, and the coma victims that result from her rampage. And all of these characters do excellently in the opposing dynamic pairings of conflict they're grouped in. Tsukasa and Mimaru battling ideologically in what it means to connect to those around you, Bear and BT on whether to use or assist whoever you encounter, Subaru and Silver Knight constantly debating the way to help someone and the role one takes in a volunteer supporting role, and Krim and Sora over aspects of their respective maturities and how that affects your perspective when you grow up and have had experiences beyond yourself, and whom you put your faith in. Hell, these points of contrast aren't just between these four pairs, but intersect with each member of the cast and help inform the ways they interact with the others as well. Mimuru's and Bear's relative openness, why they're more easily deceived or used for the gains of their opposites, and the more selfish alignment, with Mimuru's youth resulting in her being more vocal in her condemnations, while Bear's own come off as bearing the experience of one who's been betrayed again and again, but doesn't want to stop trying. And yet it's because of these contrasts that most of the cast become, or at least start, on a journey to become better people, or showing up some character flaws that have been shown. Themes of the series involve escapism, loss, definitions of reality, the importance of having people you trust and keeping yourself connected to the others to live a happy, healthy life, and most importantly, of actualizing one's own identity. It's also one of the only series I can think of where for the majority of the run you're rooting for the main character to hook up with his prime love interest, only to find out at its ending they're of the same gender. It's a twist I spoiled from the outset to simplify the series for you, the audience, but one I always enjoy, and I hope those that did in fact stayed with it through its original run enjoyed it too. Relationships in series don't tend to get a lot of proper care these days, generally either having it be from the outset and the story ending up making it a major thing, predetermined to the point the writer doesn't even bother providing justification that it's the one eternal true pairing, or the ambiguity of who pairs up at the ending being the spark that sets off shipping wars across the internet that continue to this day. As for Anne and Mariko, their relationship was shown to be at its fledgling stages, but stable enough that meeting for the first time was a joyous occasion. And I like to think that with respect to the series proper, they ended up happy together, as there's nothing in the series canon that ever said they stopped dating. And yeah, I'm glad for that. While they're not my OTP for the franchise, the pair are immensely good for each other. And the build-up and portrayal of it is done in one of the most respectful ways I've ever seen in an anime, without any fanservice-y sexualization of it in sight. And, well, damn it, everything is gay about this! I didn't talk much about the music, but I enjoy every track. It's soothing, it has good beats, it's well-paced, even though it's not normally music I enjoy, as I prefer fast-paced songs whenever possible. I think it has to do with the melancholy of much of the series. The slower tracks fit it better. Yuki Kajiura deserves all the praise for her work and all of the music compositions in this series, as does the band Seesaw for their additions of the opening and end themes. Though I do like the ending song more than the opening, which is odd as usually it's the other way around. As much as I enjoy it though, it's not by far my favorite music in the franchise. But as I said at the beginning, the biggest flaw the series has really is its pacing and the poor use of action when it does use action scenes. As more casual anime fans or those who watch more action-oriented stuff, especially these days with how fast-paced and event-filled modern anime can be, are going to suffer from that barrier of entry more than any other simply through a lack of patience. While it is nowhere near as bad as B-Train can get, sometimes it could have been better to actually be doing something while holding a conversation in the series, instead of it all just a mix of talking at locations. Hell, when my friends and I play online, we generally talk when we're still doing things. You don't have to limit the scope to keep us focused on the dialogue. There are a lot of things relating to the games that could have been showcased during the talking scenes, encouraging people to continue the experience of the world by picking up the games. Instead, there's something that helps kill the interest for a lot of people. Which is sad, as this short 26-episode series covers a lot of important and mature topics still relevant for people in the real world to this day, especially in the era of so many people playing and making friends in multiplayer games and online that helps them through their daily lives. That has been, since the first day, Dot Hack's strength, and it carries through to the franchise's end. But all in all, Dot Hack Sign proved itself a good entrance to the franchise, prepping viewers for all of the game series and the infection to come. And the redone reviews of the game series will be coming up soon. See you then.